What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to episode 3, Succeeding as an Independent Vlog. Today's questions, I have three guys that chimed in. So I'm going to start with Chris Garner. He asked about being a musician and an engineer and how to work that. Okay, so this is going to be kind of silly, but I'm going to apply a gaming terminology here. So effectively, what you're asking is saying, I want to dual specialize. Okay, I want to be both a badass musician and I want to be a badass engineer. And how do I weave those together? And the key here is going to be that you have to basically run as an Olympian in both things. Otherwise, you're sacrificing one and trying to be great at it while you're chasing the other. Point in case, I'm a piano player, but I don't practice. Why? Because when I practice, I'm mixing, I'm producing, I'm doing all these things. So granted, I can play piano and I'm pretty good at it, but I don't market and brand that because it's not my specialty and it's not what I excel at. So for you, the question first would be, what do you enjoy more? And if guitaring earns you enough money and it makes your heart happy, then I would say specialize there in being a great studio guitar player. And then I would say build your engineering based around doing that. Case in point would be a guy like Tim Pierce, who I've been up to his studio on many occasions to get guitar overdubs. And his studio is more badass than my studio. It's just specialized to guitar recordings. I mean, his gear is ridiculous. Like microphones. It's got original C12A that he's doing nylon strings, and that's going into Neves and LA3s. I mean, it's ridiculous, right? Like, he's got a better studio than I do, and I'm making the entire record, and he's just doing guitar overdubs. So beyond his talent, he is an engineer. It's just that he's not engineering for anybody. It's like he engineers his rig, and he's good at that, and he gets great tones. So again, my thought here would be like, look, if you're going to split class here and you're going to be both an engineer and a guitar player, you either have to excel at both of them evenly, but then you also have to, if you want both of these businesses to coexist in your life and both earn income, you have to spend all the same resources as one or the other. What I mean by that is, if you're going to truly market this business, remember we always go back to the shoe store analogy. If you want this shoe store to work and you want to actually earn money from selling shoes, in this case engineering records or playing guitar as a session player, then a couple things are going to happen. One, as your business model, you need two sets of business cards, not one business card with two things on it, because you don't want to put yourself in a position where you hand a business card to somebody and the dude's like, okay, what do you do? He's like, oh, I'm a producer, an engineer, mixer, I own a studio. And then you're gonna be like, oh yeah, I'm a guitar player, session guitar player, and he's gonna flip it over and be like, oh, you're also an engineer. And then you just lost it because he's not trying to be with another engineer, right? You don't need another engineer. What I need is a guitar player. So that's sometimes, it's not all the time, but that's one objection that you're gonna run into, is that people like specialists. Okay, we like specialists. I want a custom suit tailor to make my custom suit. I don't want a person who does dresses and whatever. I want the dude who's special. I want the great suit. You know what I mean? If we're going to step up in our game and hire someone to do a job of a specialist, we're going to pick the one that's right for us and not the one that kind of could step in and take my place too. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want my client to see you and like you better to do that job. I also don't want you to sidle in on my client and be like, hey, so, I know he does this, but I also do this. So these would be the reasons why you want to make sure you separate these two businesses. Okay. Different websites. I would specifically do Chris Garner engineer as one website and just engineering. And then I would say Chris Garner musician, and I would have just musicianing on that. I don't know what instrument you play. I'm going to guess guitars or piano or something like that. So, again, you could do the Tim Pierce model, which is to be a specialist who just engineers for themselves. But in doing so, he's putting out a very high quality product that's mix ready. So in the higher cost, you're getting expertise, and in addition to his talent and all his ability, it's like I throw it right on my session. It sounds like I've already compressed it and EQ'd it, whatever. So I think that kind of could cover that. If you're going to split class, in the meantime, it's going to, neither one of these businesses are really going to get where you want to go, while other people around you are going to accelerate faster because they're You know what I mean? You're going to go like this, and everybody else is going to kind of bubble up. So eventually you'll reach there. The other idea I had when I was reading this, and I wrote this down in my notes, was that make sure that you line item yourself in your contracts. If being a session guitar player is important to you, then the way that you approach this is that it is not included in your services unless you want to be a producer guitar player like a Dr. Luke. You know what I mean? Where all the guitars are included in his services. He doesn't brand himself like a guitar player, producer, and separate stuff. He is just Dr. Luke, right? So to him, there's no split there, but it's because his focus is songwriting and producing, and that's where he's going with this, on a business branding mindset. So for you, again, it's like there's so many options here, but it's really about you kind of almost have to put the focus in on one or the other. Otherwise, you're going to end up trying to build two towers, and you're going to have to keep them, so that one doesn't eclipse the other. It's almost easier to just pick one and roll with it. I don't know. I think there's some interesting things to talk about in there, and I hope that I answered your question. We'll move on to Tony Castellanos. So Tony asked, what about young guys trying to get a good-sized client, and they're competing with an objection from the client during the pitch meeting? What about credits? Okay, so let's set the scenario so that we can understand what he's asking. So he's saying, emailed with a client, and I was able to assess that the client has a budget. They can afford my services. This is the kind of client I want to work with. I've gone through about 2 emails to get this qualified my buyer, okay? And yes, they have a budget to pay for it. Yes, they are cool with the way I work. Yes, I think all the music's going to sound good. I want to work with this artist, okay? And then we go for the pitch meeting, where we're going to meet at a common ground public area that is not your studio, for both safety reasons of the client and safety reasons of the studio. We don't want strangers coming to our studios where we might have loss prevention, okay? So be your own security. First meeting with a new client is at a public place, all right? Unless it's, for whatever reason, you understand it came from a reputable source, okay? But I'm talking about they deserve this too, okay? Especially if you're dealing with women, you're going to make sure they feel safe in meeting someone, a strange man, for the first time in his private, dark space. You see what I'm saying? So, okay, safety first. So you make the client feel good. You meet at a public place. You sit down. You shake hands. You ask the client about themselves, and they're going to start opening up, and you use leading questions to get them to identify what kind of music they want to make, and what their goals are, and what they expect of you. And you use leading questions to pull this information out of them and get them talking about themselves, because you care. You really do. So get them to open up. Now, for the first time, the client then says, well, look, I'm shopping around, okay? So I've got this other producer I'm talking to who costs a little bit more money than you do, but they've got these really big credits, okay? And credits matter. So the first thing we have to understand is the why. Why do the credits matter? Because people believe, one, that prior success from a specific brand can be ported onto themselves, like putting a decal on your racing jumper or a badge, right? So if you go hire Dr. Luke and you get Dr. Luke's sign off, then you could then take that over to a record label or a booking agent or a management company, and because you have that person on your record, that accounts for the leg up, the extra bit. It's the extra foot in the door. And oftentimes, these are the clients that are the most insecure about their project, their singing voice, their songwriting. Why? Because they need the leg up. This isn't an artist who feels they can stand on their own 2 feet when they're worried about credits being the thing that opens the door. Now, that's a really negative way to think about that, and that won't be everybody. Some people want credits that guarantee that you know what you're doing at a level they're willing to pay. Okay, so what is the credit in that sense? It's a diploma. It's a layer of expertise. It's what's confidence in your ability to complete the task to the level that you've marketed it as. If that makes sense. So When you do not have those credits, let's be real with ourselves first. The first question is, can I compete at the level of the credit the client is asking for? Now, there again, we're talking about our own ego and all this kind of stuff in our own head. We have to be honest with ourselves. As businessmen, look, if we're a fledgling company that's just getting started, a brand new .com does not compete with Google. Okay, so first, you have to, let's say this is a bomb that got dropped in you mid-pitch and you have to roll with it. All right, so the first thing we got to assess real quick, and hopefully we assess this before we ever went to the meeting, is that what level of client is this? Am I capable of fighting in this weight class, or am I stepping up a weight class, okay? And in that situation, you have to be ready with what we call in sales an objection override technique. Now, this is our third episode. So the last two episodes, remember, we talked briefly about objection override techniques, and if you caught my Pro Studio Live broadcast last Sunday, we did about 2.5 hours of this, and we were talking with another person right here about objection override techniques. So here's the key to sales. The old adage is, real estate agents don't sell houses. Houses sell houses. Real estate agents get in the way of sales and screw them up. So this is to any business. When a lot of us are out buying clothes or something, right, and we go in and the person jumps on us and they're like, do you need help? Do you need help? And everybody gets like turned off and they're like, no, and they get frazzled and they stop doing the thing they were doing, which was trying on clothes, okay? And so then you're like, somebody's watching me and they think I'm going to steal something, whatever, right? So you get like flustered and then you move and you get away. The mistake was that the salesperson, while they're being told to come in and introduce and make sure that you are being helped and acknowledged into the store, a better situation would be the approach of like a sentinel, like a guard in a jewelry store, is to greet the person on their way in. Hi, welcome, and let me know if you need any help. I'll be right here, and give them space and let the clothes sell the clothes, right? That way people feel welcome, they don't feel pressured. They're going to ask a question. At a certain point, the salesperson could jump in and be like, hey, are you finding everything you need to find? Can I help you locate something specific? Grab an extra size for you. Do you want me to get you a dressing room? Okay, that would be the first chance for to make sure a sale begins. And so let's take this back to what we're doing, okay? So you're in this pitch meeting, and they said, so the other producer I'm shopping has credits of a certain level. Do you, and in this case, Tony Castellanos, who is trying to get this piece of business, do you have credits that could compete at this level? So now we flip it, objection override technique. It's always a question, right? Because what you want to do is put a question in front of your buyer that logically gives them the answer that chooses you to be the provider, okay? And the truth is, if you are not the right answer, then you should let them go, because we don't want to make every record. We want to make the right records that both earn us income, but also advance our career, but also you have to service the client. It's at the end of the day, you don't want to be someone who takes every record, because not every record should go to you. Not every record inspires you. You want to be able to advance these musicians. So the goal, of course, is to take as many of the right records as possible. And okay, back to it. So you ask a question. You say, okay, look, if I could provide you a song of the same quality as the guy with the credits, maybe even better quality, but at a reduced price because I don't have those credits, with a much, much better time frame because I'm not as busy as that guy. But at the end of the day, when you leave, the song would be just as good. Would you want to do that? And present them a situation, an either-or situation, right? Because it's about sales, that allows you to be the correct choice. Now, you have to practice saying these things, because otherwise you're going to flub on your words. So you have to get a situation like this. Think about this and say something that's natural for you coming out of your mouth, so that when it happens, it comes out of your mouth, okay? So mine was a little iffy right here. You would refine this for yourself. But remember, objection override technique, we're going to propose a question that logically chooses you as the answer. And of course, if the answer is no, and they say, no, I really want the credit, I really need someone of a certain level, then the truth is you weren't going to get that gig anyways. So at that point, the best thing to do is be like, well, you're right. I'm not at that point. So best of luck to you, because the other side of that is that that client who doesn't value um, a less price, same quality situation is going to value the credit for the credit badge that it gives, and you can't provide that anyways. So that's a situation of just being able to read it and say, okay, next, right? Then you just got to get to the next one. That's when we talked about how many pitches you need last week, last blog, right? We said how many pitches do I need per week to get the amount of business. This would be one of the ones that fall into making your batting average 1 out of 4. So great. So we just got through that one, and now we're on to the next one. Practice your objection override techniques. Random things around when you're out with your girlfriend, when you're out with your friends, and somebody's like, hey man, which beer do you want? Well, it's funny you ask. An objection over, there's no reason to, but you want to practice, okay? Practice, because you're going to get back into real life, into the sales game, and you want to hear it happening, get out of your body for a second and be like, bing, oh, hey, this is an objection. It's a perfect time to practice an objection override technique, which is the question that logically denounces you as the right choice. So you have to learn how to set those up. Okay. Because remember, the credit is only as good as its ability to get the person in contract. Really, let's come back down to it, is that the other dude may be a total doofus, and even if he has the credit, he never emails back, he doesn't call back, he's a jerk, whatever, you could still get that client. And sometimes the other side of that is you can always get like that, take a chance on me. That's also a good objection override. It's like, look, what do they say? Second place works harder. So don't forget, you can ask for the business. You can be like, I really like working with you. The other guy probably doesn't really care, right? So pull a few heartstrings. Walking away is not the right answer. And also, all this stuff doesn't work over email. You have to get that in person for that to all work. So always push for the in-person sit-down meeting so that you can have a face-to-face connection. Because if the other guy also stays on email, there you go. You're the one who actually took the time to go to the meeting. So there you go. The last one I'm going to get to right here. Michael Tinker asks how not to get ripped off and knowing your worth. So we talked about this previously, I believe in, I can't remember if it was the first or the second episode. So I would first say, please go back and catch up on those if you want to know about knowing your worth. But episode 3 here, we'll just review it because it's, we'll just go a little quicker though. Okay. So knowing your worth and valuing your time only works if we know what our base cost is. Okay. Because when it comes to negotiation price, is that most people, the problem we have, especially with independent contractors and entrepreneurs who are really kind of getting out there, us freelancers, is that there's people out there that'll just bid you down as a tactic because they're only thinking about volume. They're not thinking about quality. So the goal for them is, okay, I just got to get the business at all costs. So they're going to use a bidding war to get that business. Now, the clients always fall for that because it's money, look, there's a part where like hiring a prima ballerina to come in and headline your show, that's really important because it has box office draw. So the same thing goes here. It's like, they may spend 3/4 of the budget on one song and somebody's got to finish that record. So that also happens in situations where you have clients. I actually have a client that I'm still working with the guy. He had a producer rip him off so bad that they actually went to court about it. And so when he came to me, it was like, Doc, please fix my partially completed jigsaw puzzle and help me like get this going so I can get back to what my goal was, which was to get out there and do shows and get a band together and move on as a musician. Because remember, we're seasonal. We're interim service providers in these clients' lives. These are artists and bands that want to get out there. So know your base value, because in truth, they're going to come to you with a bad opinion or a low budget. And you have to be able to say to yourself, look, I'm so sorry, but I can't take $10 an hour because my base value is $1,000 an hour. I don't know. You have to decide that for yourself. And remember, the formula is your monthly expenses, total monthly expenses plus 10% for savings, taxes included, Everything you need to survive and thrive. All right, and I don't mean like live with champagne every night and caviar, but I'm talking about like as a normal person coming up, you need 10% for savings. If you're religious, you want to tithe 10%. You know, you need new gear. You need to have a slush fund so that you can make repairs, get new equipment, go out for sushi. Okay, so let's just say you're going to do base expense plus 30%, 40%. Like establish a good life. Sometimes it's good to just get the calculator out, okay? Because sometimes just hearing these figures make us realize. So let's just say that you need to have a base salary a month of 2,500 bucks, okay, which would get you half of a house in San Francisco with like 3 other couples, or in Los Angeles that'd get you a decent place, and anywhere else in the country you probably get pretty good except for New York. But let's say 2,500 a month, okay. What is that times 12? That is 30,000 a year. Okay, so base salary of 30,000 a year. What do we say? A month was 2,500 a month. So we're going to go 2,500 divided by 160 because don't you forget, average 4 weeks in a month. We're expected to, on a salary job to work 40 hours a week. So 4 times 40 is 160. So that comes out 15 and 6 some change. Okay, so that's like $15 an hour. Which is not bad if you're working at a regular job, at a bar or whatever, waiting tables. $15 an hour isn't bad. So if you were employed 40 hours a week, 4 weeks a month, solid at $15 an hour as a studio engineer, you'd be making $2,500 a month. So now you know that if that's your minimum monthly income that you need, then your baseline is $15 an hour and some change. So when the client comes to you and says, I need a 12-hour day, but I only have $50, then you know that that's not clearly good enough because this is your base value. So valuing yourself starts with understanding your base value to live the life you need to live. And then you have to make changes to make that work. Obviously, if you then charge double, then you're working half as much, or you have the ability to get ahead twice as far. So back to that, how do I not get ripped off? Knowing your base value. So then let's extrapolate this question into the other parts of this. How do I not get ripped off in business? Okay, well, one, you have insurance. You have a liability policy that came with the policy that covers all your gear in case of fire, flood, or someone trips and breaks an ankle in the studio and loses their finger as a prize cellist and can no longer play cellist, and now they're going to sue your business. So remember, liability coverage, insurance. Dude, I had a fire in 2006, March 2006. My Hollywood apartment burned down. Had renter's insurance. I got a check. Got a new bed. Got some new clothes. Got a new keyboard. Okay, so cover your rears. All right, CYA. First off, liability insurance will save you from getting ripped off by someone who comes in and fakes an injury and wants to sue you because they see all these flashing lights and they're like, oh, that's money. Or somebody spills something all over your vintage console. You better have that covered, man. What about the floods that happened? Oh, there was a lot of studios that got racked in the floods over in New York, New Jersey, I believe. In fact, one of the like $1 million Focusrite consoles was lost for good. So, insurance. The next thing I would say is policies. You are responsible for setting the boundaries for your studio, for the policies for your studio. Michael Tinker runs Michael Tinker Studio, not the clients, okay? So what I would recommend to you is that when the client comes to your studio, or even at the contract signing, in fact, actually, I'm going to back up. The best place to do this would be at the contract signing because you're having the person formally go through everything they're doing. So let's back up, as we always do. Let's back up. Emails came. You qualified the buyer as having a budget and being the right buyer for you that you could actually deliver on. So you went for the pitch meeting. You go to the pitch meeting, you shake their hands, you sit down, you ask them about yourself, and you use leading questions to get them to spill the beans on what they really want so that you can further assess whether or not you are the right producer to work with this client. Then you're going to set up a scenario where they choose you as the right choice using an objection override technique, but you want them to start giving you sales signals, things that say, look, I do want to work with you. I am ready. I have the budget. I want to sign. Okay, so don't miss these because they happen fast and we lose them or we screw them up or we drop the ball or we don't just ask for the sale. and say, look, I've got a contract. We could jump right in. So I always have blank contracts with me. I have a little leather, let me grab it, I'll show you. I've got a little leather satchel. Got a little leather satchel, right? It holds my laptop. It holds my headphones so I can listen to an artist's music. If she brings music, I've got a player. I've got a laptop. I've got a player. I can hear music. I can go to their website in front of them. I bring an iPad, which has stuff on it. And then I have this little leather satchel I got from Toomey. It's nothing. It's just a portfolio that matches my leather satchel. And inside of it, I have contracts. I've got my contract. All right. So I got a pen that works. I got a notepad so I can take notes at their meeting. I mean, this is business, man. You guys got to get your game up, right? Don't show up to the hockey rink without a hockey stick. All right. So there's my pouch. Inside my pouch, I also have CDs that I burned and I brought for them. I also have business cards. I have my marketing materials. I'm ready to go. In fact, if I have a client pitch, I just grab my satchel and go. I don't even think about it. All right. So back to this. Policies are important and they happen at the buying time. There's no need to go over business practices if they're not ready to sign a contract and actually want to start working on something. So your policy sheet is a schedule in your contract. So for me, this would be Schedule C in my contract. I have Schedule A, which covers the titles of all the compositions. So they're on record, like these are the songs we're going to work on. Then I have Schedule B, which talks about my policies on how I work with session musicians. And that's different for everybody, but it basically says that all payment from for session players comes from the executive producer direct to the session players, and that I, as the producer, am not middlemaning this situation. I don't want to get involved, and I don't want to write them off as expenses on my taxes. I just don't. It's cleaner this way, but I will facilitate the signing of work for hire contracts to make sure that we are legally protected as your master, all right? And that's a good producer. Producers facilitate contracts on behalf of their client. This is your job. You are a producer. You should produce these papers at the end and say, here's your contracts for all of your session players. See them all signed? They're in triplicate. Here's one for you. Here's one for the session player. And here's one for me. Okay? So my Schedule B covers my policies for that. And the Schedule C is my studio grounds policies. Now, of course, this could be taken off in separate, and you could give it to an hourly rate client. In fact, I would. On the first session in, sit down with a clipboard. In fact, the best way to do this would be to have a clipboard in the studio with about 20 of these things printed out and a little string and a pen attached to it. And this should be hanging on the side of the table on the way in, and you grab it and you hand it to them and you say, here, fill this out. Okay, this isn't even a question. These are our studio policies. If you would like to be in here, you will behave yourself, just like a doctor's office, just like you're going to get surgery. The first thing you do is fill out a medical questionnaire. So this isn't a binding legal contract that you're making them sign. All it says is, here are the studio's policies, and you're going to sign an acknowledgement that you have read these and you understand this is how it works. Now, here's the next step. How far do you want to take this? For hourly clients, I would have a line that had a credit card number on it. Okay? How are you going to pay for your session? I'm going to write a check. Okay, well, good. In case your check doesn't clear, no offense, but I've had some checks bounce on me before. In case your check doesn't clear, I need a credit card on file to hold your session date. We also have a 48-hour cancellation policy. So if you need to cancel because of act of God or because you get sick, I'm a very understanding person and I'm never going to hold that against you. But if you no-show me, you've given me permission on this sheet to charge you for the full amount of your studio session. I'm going to use this credit card. Okay, also, I now have a credit card on file where you just use this for all the billings. So you're better off right there. So this policy sheet is important. Also on the policy sheet is going to be behaviors. How many guests do I allow them to come in? Where is food or drink prohibited? Who pays for that stuff? You know what I mean? Like, obviously, if you're going to cover sodas and whatever because that's just part of your deal, then don't worry about it. But if you're like, look, I have studio runners and they will go get your food for you and bring it back, we will add that to your bill at the end of the day and you agree to pay for that, sign here. Or you're just going to end up having a situation where they give credit cards or cash to the runners, but then you want to have that in writing so that you say this is what you expect. Expect that if you want our runners to take care of your food delivery, then they're going to need cash on time of making the run, or you need to prepay it over the phone with a credit card, and don't forget to tip the runner because they're not getting paid for this. So Here's how we don't get ripped off by our clients is that we protect ourselves with insurance. We make sure that we set up the rules and the boundaries for our business, 3 items in a dressing room at one time. That's to protect the business, not to inconvenience, but it's because they can't keep track of that stuff, right? So always think of the shoe store. Always think of the policy of the shoe store. The policies for the studio. No food or drinks on the console, right? That's in big bold letters. And why? Because if that person does put a food or drink on the console and they spill that, that's grounds for them to be responsible for the repair fee. And really that's where it comes back to, talking about protecting yourself, is that insurance shouldn't even have to be called for the fact that that dude just spilled a soda on your vintage Neve. Okay? What in reality is going to happen is that you said, well, I'm so sorry, you just totally spilled a Coca-Cola on the 8028, and now you have to pay the $20,000 repair fee because you just burnt out 2 vintage channels. I mean, that's not, that dude's not going to happen. And in reality, it's probably going to bounce the thing, and there's going to be some degree of lawsuit, on and on. So you're glad you have insurance because insurance will handle it, and then they'll sue the person for you, or the credit card company or whatever. But the truth is that you do need to have something on file because you don't have grounds to go after someone unless they've agreed to it. So first day they come in, I know it was a lengthy explanation for that, but I really want to drive that home, is that you set the policies, you set the boundaries for your studio, and the way you want to be treated by people is in that policy meeting when you go over it. You don't need to do policies until you've put a contract in front of them and they've signed a contract and agreed to work with you. Okay? So if you're not doing the contract situation and you're simply doing an hourly rate, I would still have this sheet, and then I would say at the very bottom, you've agreed to this many hours for this price, and sign it. Because as we always want to explain to our clients, the reason we employ a contract, even on small jobs, and quote me on this, and you should quote me on this, to your clients when you explain this, is so that we know what to expect from each other. The contract doesn't bind us. I mean, it does bind us in the state of California. It's legally binding. But the point of the contract is not to bind us. The point of the contract is to establish our intent in working together and what to expect from the other party. You will pay me a certain amount here, and I will deliver a product here. And then you will pay me another amount here, and we will shake hands and be done. Right? But if you don't do your job and step up and deliver the product you've promised of them, then they don't have to pay you because your contract stipulates that. Okay? So it protects them, and it protects you because you don't deliver your final master recording until they've paid the back end of the, I don't mean royalties, I mean the second half. So in my contract, and everybody does this differently, sometimes a client wants a payment schedule, and then a 3 payment would be okay. I would probably say a third at the time of signing the contract. That's your deposit. It's non-refundable. It's in the contract as non-refundable. Then at the first day that we begin recording, I want the second third. And then right before we do mastering, I want the final payment. Now, I would rather, and I do most of the time, is just do a half up front, half at the end. And the reason why, and again, explain this to your clients this way, the reason why we do half up front and half at the end is that the upfront deposit protects me and all of the time and other business I'm going to displace by blocking out these calendar dates for you. So it's going to take 2 weeks. You want to do 3 songs? I'm going to at least 2 weeks to get those done because you know me, I'm 40 hours average, so that's really 3 weeks. But let's just say 2 weeks because we're going to move quick, and then you can be doing other things while I'm cleaning everything up the 3rd week, all right? Because we're going to do vocals at the same time, or we're going to do bass at the same time. So it'll be pretty chunky, but it'll work really smooth. So I've just booked out these 2 weeks, and now I can't book these to anybody else because you're on them. And if you no-show me, and then I have to be protected because I can't book that. I'm booking 2 months out right now, okay? So just be real. Explain it to your client that way and just be like, so this protects me. And then the second half protects you because you don't pay me the whole balance until I've given you a product. There has to be a carrot in front of the donkey to lead him down the path. All right, there has to be a light at the end of the tunnel. There has to be a reason to step up and finish and do a good job because the executive producer has to approve it. Otherwise, you've got a few more tweaks to go. Now, granted, you may want to have a certain amount of recalls, but the part of me as a craftsman that wants to deliver the best product possible, I don't really worry about recalls, especially because I'm in a hybrid DOS setup. I'm not on a console, so recalls to me are like I just hit open the thing and I make my fixes. And then, of course, I take photos of my analog hardware, and I also make stems of those analog prints so that they're in new playlists. So I could say at this playlist stage, I was using 1176 on insert, and then on the next playlist, there's the print of it. So at least I've got a photo of the thing, and I've got the playlist before, but if it still sounds good, I print it to new audio, and I move on with my life. That also frees up the compressor for using on other things, so that's always a good thing too, but that's off topic. Policy, credit card on file, insurance, how not to get ripped off, know your base value. I can't say that enough. The only way you can guarantee that you're not getting ripped off is to know what your minimum cost is, because then you know whether you're working below your minimum cost needed to support your life. And then you're making that choice. You're making a sacrifice. It's a gift of your services time. Now, granted, sometimes we're going to eat that. Sometimes we're going to have a couple days that we have to throw in at the end because we've got to make this work. Because if you bid on a project, if you're not like for mixing, I don't know. I just feel like I don't really want to do a flat rate for mixing. Maybe at a certain point I'll earn that prestige title that'll give me a competitive flat rate that it's what the market will bear. But at this stage in the game, I would rather be flexible with my pricing, and I would rather charge only for the services I'm going to provide. And so what I mean by that is my personal concept for mixing these days, and I find it works the best for me, is to assess what needs in the post-production world they may need. So what I mean by that is, am I going to spend 4 hours editing drums, and then I'm going to spend 4 hours tuning a vocal and editing all those, and then I'm going to spend another 3 to 4 hours tuning all the background vocals? That's already 12 hours in, right? So if I only got 4 hours budget, I'm already 12 hours in and I haven't even started mixing the record yet, right? So that means I'm really going to be up to like 16 hours of work by the time I put 4 hours into the mix after I've done all the post-production work. So it's really important that you assess what the job is. I never, not once, not ever quote someone my price without hearing the record unless I want them to go away. Okay, so that's really key, because the minute you give someone a price, they're going to shop around. Because you haven't made a contact, you haven't made a connection. You don't even know about this client. Any client who opens up to you with, hey man, what are your rates, should be seen as an opportunity for you to practice your sales techniques. In reality, the client that doesn't introduce themselves isn't really that serious. They're just checking it out, all right? They always kind of wanted to produce and they have no idea what they're doing, and so they're just checking it out. They're window shoppers, all right? Remember that. Clients that come in and ask, hey bro, what's your rate? And don't even sign it, and it's like anonymous, and it's like a one-liner. It doesn't say anything about them as an artist. These are our window shoppers. Now, that's not to say that a very observant, kind, and excellent salesperson couldn't then go in and step outside and be like, hey man, are you digging that sweater you see in the window? You want to try it on? And then pull them into the store and see if they can make a sale. A really talented salesperson is going to do that. But in this business, that's the equivalent of like identifying that this person in one sentence is the caliber of client that could pay multi-$1,000s for a multi-week project. I mean, it exists. I mean, chances, you see how it seems kind of like low chances that it's happening that way, because anybody with a significant budget that they're putting together would probably represent themselves in that manner because they want to be treated that way. They want to have some respect coming into it, unless the person's got, rich parents and cash to burn, and that's a whole other story because they didn't make the money. But that's probably going to be a hard client to please in the grand scheme of things. So let's say you shouldn't get that client, but if we're just thinking like salespeople. So I've now totally lost my train of thought, which probably means it's a good time to sign off. So Chris Garner, Tony Castellanos, Michael Tinker, thank you for your questions. Anybody tuning in right now, or not tuning right now, but episode 3 or whatever, every Sunday thereabouts, I'm going to post in Pensado Students. I'll post on my Facebook, and then I want, just give me real questions about business, questions about selling yourself, branding, getting out there, finding work, making money. Because the hardest part is that as independent studio professionals, is that what happens is that we have all these grand dreams, and we're artists by nature. The recording engineer nowadays is half painter, half technician, right? We're all artists. And so sometimes we get kind of in our own heads, and we get in our own ways, and we get caught up in the spirit of this, and we forget that we are running a business now, and that we have to be a little bit more Google in our brain and a little less artsy Etsy or whatever on this side. Well, not to say Etsy doesn't have a great business model, but anyways, whatever, I'm blabbering now. So also don't forget, all this business talk aside, remember, we're in a service-based position. We are service providers, and that core of that is to serve. Producers, that title should not represent making a beat. That's being an arranger. That's being a composer. That's being, a conductor. It's being a director. The producer title really did come from film slang, because the producer on a film set gets pizza. If pizza has to happen, if people got to eat, they're getting pizza. The producer is finding this person's script for them that they lost in their thing. The producer is the one that makes sure at the end of the day someone can produce a movie. And I mean the verb produce, as in to like put forth. And that really is the core, the crux of the role of being a producer in the business side, is that yes, we want to make the beats. We want to be creative. We want to just deal with that side of things. But the truth is that we are, as producers, responsible for maintaining our sales division of our brand, which is someone's out there fielding leads and answering questions and getting out there and like making contacts. And unfortunately, until you have a manager or an agent that's going to do that for you, you have to do it for yourself. So remember to try and separate the divine creation Genesis thing that happens over here, where the spirit flows into us and we make music and our hands fly around without us feeling it, like that wonderful thing that happens where we really, really, really want to live as artists. And that's not to get like super spiritual and like whatever. I'm not talking about whose God is whatever. I'm talking about just that flow that happens, whatever you believe. But the narrative side of us that has to be incredibly analytical and technical, and has to really maintain the business that we're in. So anyways, I hope that this was a good episode. Always check me out, facebook.com/DrFord Music. Same thing for YouTube, DrFord Music. Twitter, DrFord Music. Tweet me your questions. Tweet me, whatever. I'm here, man. I want to help you guys out, and I want you to end up succeeding more. I had a thought just now, and I'm just going to say it before I leave, is that it goes back to Tony Castellano's point about here's another objection override. Here's our Marvel end of credits scene objection override technique. We all have friends. What if you upsold? Okay, so instead of allowing this client to go because you don't have the credit to get the fish on the hook, the worm's not big enough. What if you got a buddy that you could bring the client to? And effectively, if this was a lawyer situation, this would be a finder's fee or a referral fee. What if you had a client with a significant budget and you are not at the caliber to land this client, but instead of just throwing it back, you could say, well, I just happen to be friends with, or DrFord, hey, whatever. But no, seriously, you could upsell this client and step them up. I'm sure, and I'm just totally guessing here, but I'm sure there's a price where I could then say, I actually am personal friends with Ken Lewis or Craig Bauer or whoever, right? You pick the guy that you've made a connection with and be like, I could take you right to them, and this person has both the producer chops, the mixing chops, and the credits. You couldn't ask for a better dude, and I could bring you right to him. This could be an opportunity for you to maintain your producer title because you brought them to the talent, or at least co-producer title, or whatever. I mean, you might end up sharing a project with someone that is a dream to work with, who is cool. Is be like, right on, thank you for bringing me this contract. Let's kill it together. You know what I mean? Like, and if you really respect that person, then you let them have the big credit, and the client's stoked, and you get to be a part of this still. So now you've gone from flipping a client you were never going to get to someone stepping in to help you out, a big brother situation where you still get paid and you get a new credit that at least now is at that level. So now you can actually build those credits you were asking for. This also actually comes back to, the thing that most people don't want to do, which is go all the way with this stuff. And what I mean by that is when you're putting together a demo reel, it would really benefit you to take that to the best mastering engineer you could possibly find and have your demo reel professionally mastered so that it sounds the greatest it could sound. Don't be afraid to go all the way. Don't be afraid to take it to the next level. Don't be afraid to step up and play with the big boys. Don't be afraid to spend a little money on your marketing. If you don't have a marketing budget, you aren't marketing. That, $500-$600 that you paid the mastering dude to master 4 or 5 songs that are your best songs, even if the client didn't pay for that to happen, you are setting yourself up for a better forward motion in your pitch process because you're able to now hand your demo reel with absolute certainty that it sounds the best it's going to sound. So, young engineers, that's a tip back, and I really will close it this time. Young engineers, your demo reel, even if you don't have credits, is the only thing showing the client that you can do the job. Okay? Hype doesn't get you there. The only thing you have, right, we talked about, I think in episode 1, it's like, how do we build this stuff? If you don't have any awards that you can go win from a mix contest, if you can't get any people to give you famous quotes about you that are like, yeah, this guy really can do it, I'd stake my name on it, quotes about you, like from like people whose brand counts for that kind of thing. A teacher, a mentor, someone with some serious credits that can lend that to you for your marketing that'll get you a little bit farther. So then your demo reel truly is, and this probably goes back to Tony Castellanos, your demo reel truly is the only thing you have to prove the sonics are going to come out of this project. So that leads back to the objection override technique, is to say, look, if I could show you that my product sounds better than the guy with the credits, you'd be a fool not to hire me, right? Right. Of course I want the stuff that sounds better. Who doesn't want the stuff that sounds better? Especially if it doesn't cost as much and it's more available. Then take the time and get that demo reel sounding the best it can get it. If that means that you have to hire a professional mixer to mix your stuff, that just makes you a producer. Producers get their stuff mixed all the time. I mean, the only time I would say don't go that step is if you're trying to brand yourself as a mixer, and then you want the ability to say, look, I mixed all this. So then that mixer should go hire a mastering engineer. Because why? Because you're a mixer. You're not a mastering guy, right? Let the dude be the quality control and step you up to the next level. It'll be the best $500 you ever spent, especially if you're going to print those CDs with graphics and covers so you can take them and you can show up to your pitch meeting and you slam that thing down and be like, boom, that's the kind of business I do, right? So be strong. Put your best foot forward always, and I hope you guys have an incredible week and a lot of success. And please, please, please comment, like, share, post. I want to help as many people. There's 15,000 members in Pensado students. I should have 15,000 views in these. I want to help you. I want questions. I want us all to start winning at this game so that we can all together as the group make this industry better. Because there's no puppet masters, because we're all independent, succeeding musicians with thriving businesses. All right. See you guys later.